Hello everyone, this is Brian Ferguson, the host of Bumps and Thumps, the talk of wrestling. I want to tell you about a new podcast out called Falls Count Anywhere. It is a classic pro wrestling podcast that brings you the legends of wrestling with true wrestling fans Chris DiCarlo and Charlie Turner. They bring on guests that are legends in this business, and as well as wrestlers of today, promoters, referees, you name it, they have them on there, folks. And I encourage you to listen to them. If you're on YouTube, watch them. They drop every Saturday. They have their podcast. They drop it in the afternoon. So look forward to that podcast coming out. Falls Count Anywhere podcast with Chris DiCarlo and Charlie Turner. Folks, you will not be disappointed. I guarantee it. And enjoy the podcast. Thank you for joining another edition of Bumps and Thumps, the talk of wrestling. I'm Brian Ferguson. My guest today has been a part of professional wrestling since she was born. She is a lifetime member of the Cauliflower Alley Club and the daughter of the leader of the Four Horsemen, J Dillon. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce Miss Pam Morrison. Pam, thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to talking with you.
I am too. We talked a little bit at the CAC Reunion last fall in Las Vegas and got to know you a little bit. And I'll be honest, I did not realize that you were J Dillon's daughter. I had no idea. I just thought you were an avid fan, kind of like Darla.
I am. Well, no, wait. Let me just correct you, because I am first and foremost an avid fan. Well, okay. Actually, chronologically, I'm first and foremost J Dillon's daughter, but I am equally, I guess, an absolutely avid fan. I mean, I am. I have to admit, I don't watch. Unless like if Arn's going to be doing something big or like when Tully was on TV with A&E and stuff, or AEW, I would watch a little bit, here and there. And when Ashley first started as Charlotte, I watched a little bit, but I don't watch the product. But I do love going to the independent shows. Yes. I mean, because that's kind of like what takes me back more to what's near and dear to my heart. So I am not correct. Some might call me a groupie, and I'm okay with that.
But I did not know that. I think actually Darla or Barbara Goodish, I don't remember which one I was talking to, because I just asked, I said, how does Pam fit into all this? And they told me that you were JJ's daughter, and I was just, oh wow, I mean, I had no clue. And I'm a pretty big fan, but I had no clue. So kudos to you guys. And you guys, we'll talk about your little trio here in a little bit as well. But
do you ever wonder what would happen if
you give a dad a podcast?
I'm what you call a nerdy fan. I nerd out at this stuff hardcore.
You'll hear me talk about anime on here. You'll hear me talk about Power Rangers. You'll hear me talk about wrestling on here.
Okay.
I had an axe handle with a Twisted Tea on it. It was right after that Twisted Tea video went viral. And man, they went out and grabbed it and smacked a dude in the head with it. It was so...
That's great. I'd like to think of this podcast as a nostalgia moment for me. It's a show where I can talk about whatever I want.
I'm a human and animal chiropractor. There was a picture of me. It looked like I was on the side of a ramen box over in China. But
so I took my kids with me to Comic-Con.
I thought that was really cool.
Well, I don't know if my wife should listen to this podcast. We'll cut that part out. You hope. Be like, and then Robert said this.
If You Give a Dad a Podcast. Available now on all podcasting platforms.
I want to get into a little bit, if we could, please, Pam.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you growing up a little bit. I mean, you were born into this business, basically,
Mhm.
and well, can we talk a little bit about what your childhood was like and growing up, going to school, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, and that's where kind of like there was a little bit of uh a story maybe different than what people assume, because my dad was late getting into the business, but kind of had, had me sort of not young by today's standards, I guess, because he had, graduated from college a year or two, but met my mother when he was in college, went to a, smaller liberal arts school in Reading, Pennsylvania. Met her. She's from the area in Reading. Met her, got married, had me a couple of years later, and he was, had this dream all along of what he wanted to do, which, as you know, is not something that you can make happen overnight. You sort of, I mean,
Right.
it's so many things of having to be, in the right place at the right time. And on top of that, the stars all aligning
Yeah.
to allow things to happen in your favor, to be able to get to the next step um, along the way. So he was refereeing and things like that. Now, even by the time they got married, there were, the wrestlers that were in their wedding and things like that. But he wasn't. That was not his career. When I was like a baby, they split up when I was very young. Um, he followed his dream, and my mom, to be blunt, just had no interest in traveling the world and doing that kind of thing. She was for stability and just kind of wanted to stay where her roots were, and that's what she did. So um, he was in my life peripherally, and I followed, what he did. I knew what he did. He came to see me regularly. I saw, um, his grandparents regularly. They lived in Michigan, so they would, I would go see them with my mom. He would come see me, etc. And then, of course, as he got into the business, more, and as I got older, then there was talk about, as he was in places for a longer period of time and sort of established himself in a territory for an amount of time where it would make sense for me to be able to go spend some time with him.
Yeah.
Certainly not for like a year of school or anything, because there was still, I think, too much, not instability, because that's not really a fair word, but just too many nuances and too many unknowns as far as how long something would last. And
Yeah.
as far as, having a kid and going to school and where it made sense for me to stay full time, it's just was like, and my mom had remarried by the time I was like 5 or 6. I have a brother that I kind of grew up with as my younger brother, a wonderful stepfather. So I had that kind of family unit. And then I had, my dad too, which was fantastic. So by the time I was about, I want to say like 11 or 12, I don't really remember exactly how old I was, but my dad was established enough that he was in territories for a long enough time that it made sense for me to spend summers with him. And I would be able to go from like the day after Christmas until after New Year's, or extended school holiday breaks, things like that. That's when I got to start to really spend time with him. Now, that said, I knew what he did,
Right.
but I didn't really have any context for it, so I was not, I mean, when I first went to the matches, it was just like, I had no idea, and he did not, I will say, he never to this day smartened me up to anything, nothing.
Yeah.
So, but I just loved it. I mean, I loved it from like the first time I went. I just absolutely loved it. And I loved the heels, even I think before his match. because by then he was like mid-card, you know, at least. And even like the, you know, the first match, I think I was like, the heels were so much cooler than the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. There might have been an exception with Kerry Von Erich, I will admit. I don't know what I was thinking, but you know, I guess I have to own that. And Barry Windham, of course, a couple of years later, but
Yeah.
of course he, you know, he ended up turning heel and is better known, I think, for being a heel. So that was always in him. But yeah, I was always a fan, and that's kind of, so my childhood was spent on the road, and that's kind of where I think my childhood was a little different from other families, wrestling families, where maybe they had as much of a stable family unit, you know, where I don't think the kids would be like on the road with the boys. Like, I never saw that. I mean, in their town, yeah, like I'd sometimes see, you know, sometimes, but even like not normally, to be honest. But that was the norm. Like, I would go. Now my dad was remarried, wonderful, my stepmother was a wonderful lady, but when I would go with him, like I would go with him, and we'd you know, back in those days, you know, the territory days, it was like getting the, you know, make the loop, or for the most part it was, you know, in Texas for I think the first 2 years, and then he was in Bob Geigel's territory in Kansas City. So it was a lot of driving, you know, a lot of like some overnights, and just, I loved it. I mean, I loved it. I loved it. So I saw a lot. He always says, you saw the good, the bad, you know, you saw a lot of things you shouldn't have seen, and heard a lot of things you shouldn't have heard. But I was kind of just accepted. And it was amazing. I mean, it was amazing. I wrote you already referenced earlier, I think maybe we weren't live yet, but you had mentioned my dad's book, and I wrote the foreword to my dad's book.
Okay.
Which I'm sure, you know, maybe people skipped right over to get to like his part, but I did write the foreword. And it's about, you know, how privileged I was to have that opportunity, you know, to have like this front row seat. I mean, I rarely got to sit in the front seat, but front row seat, you know, figuratively, into that world of those days, and just, it was amazing. So I'm sorry, I've been like going on.
No,
probably have specific questions. And
no. That's the job. You're supposed to speak. I just ask questions. No, I appreciate
Greg
it.
Oliver, like, she won't shut up.
We're going to talk about him in a few minutes, but I want to talk, you know, you mentioned your dad's book, Wrestlers Are Like Seagulls, From McMahon to McMahon. And we talked a little bit before we came on. That book is very hard to find. I went online because I wanted to get one. And they're either out, they're very high priced, which is good, or they're out of stock, out of sale, you know, don't have any. So I've read a lot of reviews on it. It's a great book. From what I've read the reviews on. And so kudos to you and your dad for getting that out for people.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, what was it like for you to you know, you wrote the foreword, but I'm sure you're part of the process of writing the book and creating that. What was that like for you?
Well, I can't really take credit for that. I will tell you the way that the process was. My dad was, he doesn't really have to be anymore, so I can't say that he is now, but when he was working at whatever job, he was very, very meticulous about record keeping. So throughout his whole career, he would keep a like a day planner calendar, you know, one of those, not like a refillable one, but like every year you get a new one with the vinyl cover. And he kept one of those every year, and for every single day, you know, he kept meticulous notes on, you know, where he was, like just all the information, all the details. So he had, boxes of these day planners. And when he talked, the talk was about writing a book. And at first he was kind of like, well, like, and then, thought more about it and was kind of talked into like, this is a good idea. And then, they realized, and he, of course, wrote it with Scott Teal. This is like all of the factual information, the who, what, where is literally here. Like, it's all here. You don't have to try to remember. You don't have to try to like mine the information online and cross-reference, and it's here. So you just have to fill in everything else, which of course, and then put all of the stuff that Scott can do to put it into like a story. And that's how that evolved. And then a gentleman, Philip Varial, whose name is also on the cover, because he lent another very important factor to the completion of the book, which was he would get the chapters as they were completed, and he was more of a fan. And then he would say, well, during this time, this is when whatever, like some big, other, like some big thing happened. And then it was like, oh yes. And then, that would fill in and add even more like color, if you will, to the book. And then as the chapters were finished, Scott would email them to me. And my role was really just, I just reviewed the chapters as they were finished. And if there was anything that I remembered differently, or sort of like, with the, especially with the later chapters, if there were things that I also remembered that was like, oh, well, what about this or this, whatever, then, because the book only goes up, it was written in 2005, which is hard to believe is going to be 20 years ago. But, so that was kind of my role, which was really minor, because they had, between the records that they had and what Scott contributed, which was huge, and then what Philip contributed, which was like the icing on the cake, or the cherry on top of the cake, or whatever. They really had a complete product. And I know my dad is incredibly proud of it. I know, and I don't know if it's okay for me to say this or not, I guess it is, that Scott had shared with him just recently how it's like one of the best-selling books, that Scott's aware of. And that's like, considering, I think, not even the books that Scott publishes, but like wrestling books in general, because it isn't just like a mishmash of stuff, or things that sort of jump all over. It's really, it is a story, and it's a story of somebody's following their dream, and their dream comes true, and they make it all the way to one Hall of Fame and 2 Hall of Fames, and he's going to go into the St. Louis Hall of Fame in May, which is very exciting. And I understand I'll see you there, so that's exciting.
I'm excited too.
So
I think that's great. When I saw that, for those of you watching or listening, Herb Simmons, SICW, every year put on a Bruiser Brody memorial, tribute to Bruiser Brody, but they also hold the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame banquet at the same time. And this year, JJ's going in, and Gerald Briscoe is going in. So that's great. And, what a pair, right? And then I saw Darla Staggs
could get lively.
Being awarded.
Could be a lively event.
So it'll be a lot of fun. I know it will be. I'm looking forward to it. So, and I'll have that information in the description about when the event is, how they can get tickets, and all that stuff. So
please, if you're anywhere near St. Louis, or have ever thought of visiting St. Louis, that would be a great time to do it, because I'm sure you won't you won't regret it. You might regret it if you don't go and you see write-ups and pictures, because I'm sure it is going to be a fantastic time. And like you said, Darla is going to get the Larry Matizak Award, which is Darla's
Larry
an
Manisak. I'm sorry. I saw it was Sam Mushnick. I apologize.
Yeah.
My fault.
Yeah, and yeah, so that's, and my dad and Jerry both absolutely love her, so that'll be really, really special too.
What I really enjoy about those type of events, they're a smaller venue, one, and also the fact that you're not charged an arm and a leg to go and talk to your dad, to Jerry Briscoe, JBL, all these legends that are going to be there.
Yep.
It doesn't cost you 100, 150 to go
Yeah.
talk to these guys. It's going to cost you a little bit of money, but it's not going to cost you $100
Right.
to get an autograph and a picture of someone, where it might cost you 20 or 30.
Right.
Which
Right.
is manageable. They got to make a living too. I get it, but I went to an event last year in Dallas. Your dad was there. He wasn't too bad.
The WrestleMania
because,
weekend event.
But I'm saying, he has to charge what he charges because of the people putting on the event, and I understood that.
Yes.
But there are some guys that were charging huge amounts of money, and it was very frustrating. I'll just say that. We're here, I know, because I know Herb's running it, and it's going to be, you're going to pay a little money, but you're not going to pay
reasonable. Yeah.
Exactly. My whole point is reasonable, and you actually can sit down, or you can talk to them for a few minutes, kind of reminisce a little bit, and they won't try to push you off because there's, other people waiting. They're paying big. You can talk a few minutes, and they'll let you do your thing, which is great.
Yes.
That's what I'm looking forward to, and seeing you and let's go with Greg Oliver. Greg Oliver. I'm just telling you what he told me. I had a podcast with him probably about a year ago now,
Okay.
and referred to you, Darla, and Barbara as the queens.
Oh, okay.
So
yes.
I need to know, and our fans want to know, what is this queens? What does that mean?
Well, that's old news, Brian. I mean, and if you're hearing it from Greg Oliver a year ago, it's funny that it's taken you this long to ask.
Well,
No, here. Okay, so the queens. That's a funny. Yes. That's a funny story, and I will say that it is something that has kind of taken on a life of its own, and it's funny because, okay, I'm going to tell you, let me just, because I'm like in a corner here because I work from home. I work from home a lot, and I have a lot of video calls. So I purposely keep my background, like my bulletin board is right here, but you can't see it because, I have like work reference stuff on there. So, but also my bulletin board, I don't know if you can see this.
Thunderbolt,
right? So Thunderbolt, and you can see, I don't know if you can see, but it says like to the queen on there.
It does, to the queen, Thunderbolt
to the queen, So Thunderbolt actually is the person who named us the queens, and it was group of women, and I think honestly this is what I think happened. Thunderbolt, because we all absolutely just love and respect Thunderbolt. I mean, who doesn't, right? But I think we like extra dote on him, and just I don't know, he's just so special. He is just such a special. And so and I think just as a term of like respect to started saying like, oh, the queens, my queens, just my queens. So that's how the whole thing started. It has, I think, sort of taken on a life of itself. And we take full advantage of it. But I want to say, but here's the thing, because I don't want anybody, and I'm weird about stuff like this. Like, I don't want anybody to ever hear us say that and think that it's like any kind of implied like exclusivity or something, because it's not. I want to say, and I know that this sounds like deep, I don't mean it that way, but like all women are queens. So this is not like, oh, we're like, we joke around it at CAC, and we always say like,
Yeah.
oh, the queens, like, but honestly, it's that's, I think that's how it started, and we make the absolute most of it. But we don't, hey, hang with us, you're a queen, like, please feel
Yeah.
free. That is how
That's
it
great.
originated, and it is
Okay.
all just with like good humor. And but it's we put a little thing in the in the program at CAC, the queens. So yeah, when you hear like Darla and Barbara and I talk about it, that's where it started. That is where it started.
All right, Thunderbolt
It's taken on a
Patterson.
life of its own.
Yeah. No, I see. I didn't know that. I don't know if some people probably know it, but it's good to know. Thunderbolt Patterson started the whole thing.
Thunderbolt Patterson. And I think,
Yeah.
I believe I saw, just to plug another thing, because I don't know how far you're away from Waterloo, Iowa, but he'll be in Waterloo, Iowa for the
In
for
July.
the George. Yeah. And that's an amazing event too. So
Yeah.
as will my dad be in Waterloo, Iowa. So
Wow.
you can make it there.
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
You could do an amazing podcast from there. I could probably talk some people into sitting down with you for a couple minutes to chat.
All right, you're tempting me here. I'm
Like,
trying to get there. I really am trying.
Twist your arm a little bit.
You don't have to twist. It's just timing and stuff right now. I got some things.
Oh,
going
I know. Everybody has a lot going on.
Yeah. So, but I'm going to try my darndest to get up there for sure. So,
yeah.
Speaking of your dad, if we'll talk about that at the end, about how to get a hold of him and if they want to book him or whatever. But I want to talk a little bit about going back a little bit more, like your interaction with other wrestlers, other wrestlers' families. What was your first one that you really remember that you said you interacted with, either a child or a family member?
I remember the first that I think I remember was, and I don't know how many people, because Mr. Sakurada, who passed away a couple of years ago, and Mr. Hito, who were both, they both worked, I think predominantly for Stu Hart in Calgary, but they both lived in the same apartment complex that my dad did in Dallas. So I remember, like, during the day, if we were home during the day, or being at the swimming pool, like with their kids, not Sakurada's kids, but so I think he had a son later on in life, but Mr. Hito had 2 daughters. So being at the pool with them, and they would cook, like the Japanese barbecue. And then actually years later, Sakurada in Florida, Sakurada was in the Florida territory. That's when he was Kendo Nagasaki. I think Terry Funk gave him that gimmick. So people might know him more as that gimmick. I think he's actually one of the thumbnail pictures on the cover of my dad's book, Kendo Nagasaki. He remained really close up until he passed away. I think it's about 3 years ago now. So I remember that. I remember, Mike Graham, his family, his kids, going to, like, I guess swimming, because it was always in the summer. That's why I remember like swimming, but going to like the beach and the pool with them. I think I talked about that somewhere before. And also Flair's, because my stepmother was really close with Rick's wife, Beth, his second wife, who is Ashley's mom, and was Reed's mom. And Ashley, of course, wasn't born yet, and nor Reed, but Beth was the stepmother to Rick's oldest children, Megan, who is married to Conrad Thompson, who
Okay.
I think most people probably know, and David. So she was David and Megan's stepmother, and she would, excuse me, she would go get them and bring them to Florida. When Rick he would usually do like as the NWA champion, would come to Florida for like a week or whatever. And so Beth would get them and bring them down. And I remember that because sometimes like I'd babysit at the hotel or whatever. And it was always so much fun when Rick would come, because you just never knew what was going to happen. And but I remember like if his kids were there, I remember being with them because they were sweet, and David was such a little cutie, and I remember that. But it was, as far as like time with other wrestlers' families, that was the strange part. It was really limited. It was mostly just with the other wrestlers in my dad's car.
Hey everyone, this is Brian Ferguson, the host of Bumps and Thumps, the talk of wrestling. We are on here today because of you, viewers and watchers like you. In order to continue the podcast, we need to monetize our YouTube channel so we can get guests on that require financial compensation. That's where viewers like you come in. If you subscribe today, we can get that number up to 1,000. And as an incentive, the 1,000 subscriber will receive a free t-shirt just like this and receive a book from the legendary George Shire on his Minnesota Golden Age of Wrestling, from Vern Gagne to the Road Warriors, signed by George Shire himself. So please get on there, tell your friends to subscribe today. When we hit that 1,000 mark, you're going to get a t-shirt like this. I'm going to reach out to you. You're going to be coming on the show as a guest and receive that book, the Minnesota's Golden Age of Wrestling, from Vern Gagne to the Road Warriors, signed by George Shire. So get on there today, subscribe, and please enjoy the podcast.
Because he had this van, this Dodge van that he had. It was like a custom van, painted blue stripes. And then the inside he had done, it was like all blue shag carpet. On the back, by the way, on the back, he had a woman's ass painted, like on the back door, just the outline of like a woman's ass. It was interesting because it was one of those, like as a kid, you're like, oh, okay. Oh, all right. But then the inside, it was blue carpet, and it had two captain's chairs, and then a big bench seat in the back, and you could, sit in the back or lay in the back, and and it was just, sometimes there'd be two guys riding with him, sometimes one, sometimes three, whatever, and I just sort of sit wherever nobody was sitting. And it was miles, sometimes it was days, sometimes it was like in Texas, it was like you'd go to one city and then you'd stay in a hotel and then go, so I remember, like, that's what I remember more so than anything else, spending the time, on the road, and just the miles and miles and miles, and just, I mean, I remember like marveling at some of the people. So that I hate to say, like, I remember that more than any interaction with any children. I remember, that.
Yeah. Understandable. Yeah. That's pretty cool. CAC, Cauliflower Alley Club.
Yes.
You're a big.
I'm a big supporter of CAC.
Big supporter,
yes.
Big part of it. Talk to us a little bit how you got involved and what you do there. I mean, I've seen you there. You're running around a lot. I know that, taking the tickets. When I got there, you and Barbara and Darla were there taking the so talk to us a little bit about that, how that works.
So CAC, the first time I went to CAC, my dad just said, hey, do you want to go to Las Vegas? This thing, and kind of said what it was, and it was like, yeah, sure, it sounds fun. And I think it was it was probably like 2005 or 2006, and had a great time. And then he was honored in 2007. Went there for that. And I've been going kind of sporadically. I mean, there were a couple things. I think I didn't go. I actually had, I know there were a couple of years I didn't go because I have a daughter who's going to be 15. So I know there were a couple of years that I missed, and then I missed like 1 year more recently, but I've been going like pretty consistently. My dad for a bunch of years emceed the banquets.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad, I don't know if you
Wow.
were ever there I mean, let me tell you, I don't know if you can ask Darla about who
Okay.
her favorite banquet MCs were, because when my dad, it was the tag team duo of JJ and Terry Funk.
Oh boy,
And
yeah.
not to take away from JR, who's fantastic. I wondered like when JR wasn't going to do it 2 years ago, I thought, oh, how, boy, those are like big shoes to fill. And then, John Arezzi, I thought did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
But, my dad and Terry, and of course, it's just not feasible, obviously, like the days are past, but they did it for a couple of years, and just it was great. So I just always loved going. It was something I always looked forward to, always had a great time. And then, just I would say to Brian, like, well, at first it started with like me not like saying, what about this person for an award? What about like, and can I help with anything? And is there
Yeah.
anything I can do? And just because it is a club of volunteers, nobody is getting paid to do this stuff.
No.
And I think I look at it, and you do see. And I noticed it, like, I mean, you probably notice like as you get older, and there are people like this year, it was hard to not see Reggie Parks and Charlie Smith. And you just think, gosh, every year there's going to be people that you're used that are like fixtures. Like, you always see these people there. And other people have to get involved and do things. And certainly, like, not that I'm young to do it, but I feel like I'm enthusiastic enough to bother young people to make to try to
There you go.
to encourage them to get involved. And I've been, probably Brian would say, like, barraging him with ideas. I think sometimes I talked to him last night for yesterday he texted me and he said, do you have a minute? I said, I have 26 minutes because I had a conference call. And then he was like, I'll call you in 5. And I thought, yeah, because he doesn't want to hear me for 26 whole minutes. He probably only wants to hear me for 20. But I said, I just think I love the club. I love everything it stands for. I love that they have the benevolent fund. I see the stuff, you see the stuff that happens, yes, there are people who are incredibly lucky that they might have, a spouse who has fantastic health insurance that you don't hear about. But then you hear about the Barry Windhams that have, a situation in the Atlanta airport, and then they're looking at, I don't even know I don't know how long, he was in the hospital or anything like that. I know, like, how much a hospital bill is, even just for like a couple hours in the emergency room. So you can imagine an ambulance ride and intensive care and like whatever else happened, and having like zero insurance. And when you look at, like, statistically in the United States, that, not to get like off the subject, but like 66% of bankruptcies are due to medical bills. And here are guys that are in an industry that historically like there is no medical coverage,
No.
and they're beating their bodies, like that's what they do. So
Yeah.
maybe something isn't immediately noticeable, but over
Yeah.
the years as things catch up, and what do you do, if you
Yeah.
don't, and then let alone the other things that are like more of like a catastrophic thing,
Right.
on top of like the wear and tear. So I love the fact that CAC, or people that just are in, that are maybe living like paycheck to paycheck or something, and something happens that one paycheck isn't there, and they have a way to say like, can you help me to just bridge this gap? And there's no shame in it or anything like that, because it's a network of their fellow, brothers and queens that want to say like, yes, like, yes, we
Yeah.
are, we're all here for you.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
nobody's everybody's just happy to do it. So,
Yeah.
and then, on top of that, like I said to Brian, everybody knows the CAC for the, the once a year reunion, but it is so much more than that. But the reunion itself is amazing. I mean, I look forward to that. I'm telling you, it's embarrassing. It is. I should be embarrassed to admit how much I look forward to that reunion. Like I literally should, but I'm not. I don't even care. And the fact that this year, like, I'm going to just say it, because the Monday of the reunion is my birthday. So I already,
Oh,
it's
okay.
legit that I can count down to it, because it's also my birthday. But I do, like, every year it's like, this is great. Like, as soon as the last one was over in September, I was just like, when are they announcing the dates? When are they announcing the dates? And then when it took them so long, I'm like, what the hell? I have my calendar for 2023, because I'm still one of those people. Like, I do have everything in my phone, but I love paper. Like, I love paper books, paper calendar. I still like, I want to know the date. I want to have that in my calendar, that I see CAC. I do. I love the reunion. I love to see people. Like, I just met you. There was a couple people I met. I love to see people that I only see there. I love to see people that I see there in a couple other places. I mean, it's just, it's like seeing it's like a family reunion.
Yeah. No,
100%.
I went first time last year, my wife and I. And what's funny, you say that your birthday is the first one. Her birthday was the first Monday. This last one, it was September 26th, and I had to make a deal with her. Well, she's not a big wrestling fan. I had to make a deal with her, so we stayed a couple extra days after it was over and did some stuff together. But it worked out good, and she really enjoyed it. Met some nice people there, yourself and others, and just had a really good time. And it's not that expensive. Probably the most expensive part is the flight, because the rooms there are actually, for Vegas, really inexpensive,
and
for the
they're
time
nice.
You're there. And they're nice. They're nice, and you're in a great location, right next to the Strip. Boom,
yes,
you're right there.
Or next to Fremont Street.
Fremont Street, I'm sorry.
Yes, and
did you ever wonder what could have been with the AWA had things gone differently? Had their fortunes gone differently? Had certain wrestlers not left, and perhaps more money would have been at the disposal of the Gagnes? Well, wonder no further. You can go to Brad Drake's YouTube channel and experience the 1987 Supermod for yourself, as Brad Drake starts off in May 1987, along with Greg Gagne, Baron Von Raschke, Vern Gagne himself, Nick Bockwinkel, Larry Zbyszko, Kurt Hennig, and a slew of others, as he plays and saves the AWA.
And just to say that, for people who didn't go last year, and honestly, I'm bugging Brian to try to reach out, to try to get some kind of campaign to reach out to lifetime members who haven't been coming to reunions, because I think, the change of venues, and I know you said last year was your first time, so but hopefully maybe some of your listeners can relate to this. And I know you can't please everybody, so please, like, this is that's the disclaimer here. But and sorry, I'm fidgety, but there was years passed, and it's been all over in the time that I was there. I mean, it was at the Plaza before one year that I was there, I remember. And it was at the Riviera, but for the past bunch of years, it was at the Gold Coast, which was fine. It was fine. But if you wanted to go anywhere of value, you had to get an Uber, which can be a great adventure, of course. Like you can, make a memory in an Uber. But you also have to, there's a cost that goes with that to go either to the Strip or to downtown. The move to the Plaza to me was phenomenal because every night, like we went out to Fremont Street, and my dad only went out one night because we were in the Sand Dollar Bar, and normally we'd go out to Fremont Street later on. But it was just like, it's always right there, it's like there's a little store right there where you can get, you don't have to, like, I'm not a foodie person, so I like exist on like just healthy snack food, but not like meals. So there's like, you can get like fresh fruit, you can get whatever kind of like drinks you want, right there. You don't get that at the Gold. Like, what do you do? Take an Uber to like Whole Foods or something? You can't, you know what I mean? You can't do that. And right there was like a nice coffee shop. There was nice little, there was a bunch of different restaurants. There was like a Asian restaurant and a pizza place and a Mexican place all within the Plaza. And then the entertainment. I mean, the entertainment of Fremont Street, let's face it, the free entertainment that comes with being on Fremont Street. There was live music. There was like three stages or four stages. I don't even remember because
4.
Some nights we
it was
didn't
like a T.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic. So I would encourage anybody who went before and thought, the rooms are nicer at the Plaza than they were at the Gold Coast. I mean, everything. I just thought it was fantastic, and I encourage. I know although flights have come down a little bit, so give it a try. Give it a try.
Yeah, I mean, we went. Flight wasn't that expensive. The rooms for what you get in Las Vegas, especially, are just like any other. Or they're a lot cheaper for one. And you're right next to Fremont. I mean, you walk out the door, you're at Fremont Street. You just cross the street, you're
there. You cross the street and you're there.
You're there, and you guys put on great programs during the day. With the
there's gonna be more stuff this year. There's gonna be there was that quasi like pool party, which I know kind of ended a little bit earlier than anticipated. It's not going to end early this year. There's going to be karaoke this year. Which if you like to sing, you don't even have to be good at it, but if you like to sing, just, that's great. I'm sure there will be people that are good singers that will be there, but you know what I mean? If you're among friends, you don't have to be a good singer. You just have to be enthusiastic. Or get a partner that's good, that can kind of carry you. Just not me, because I can't, but you can get somebody who can sing and get up and sing. So that there's that, and the baloney blowout. And then I know already, I had talked to Brian and talked to Rich, and they both said that the dinner is going to be set up differently. I think it's going to be, there's going to be more of a variety. So because I know, there's always complaints about the dinner, no matter where. And I know, for people who all of a sudden had a lapse of memory and said how good the Gold Coast was, and it was the same people who complained about the Gold Coast, so it was weird. But they're trying to accommodate, and it's hard with so many people, like with hundreds of people, but they're really trying to accommodate that on Wednesday night and have a setup that is better for everybody. I think one of the things they're going to try to incorporate is taking suggestions from people. Like this year, and again, some things are not going to be like feasible or maybe even not able to be done cost wise. But it's if you're part of the CAC, and I encourage everybody to be, it's $25 a year or $300 for a lifetime membership. It's your club. Like once you're in, it's your club. have a say, like speak up. I mean, that's, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
it's for. So
No.
I'll look
No, it's
forward to seeing people
yeah.
there.
Yeah, me too. Try to get out there for that, definitely. We've been talking about that, so I'm really looking forward to it. And it's a month earlier, so I'm gonna have to bargain with my wife on what to do on her birthday. So
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Good. Good.
So one more question, actually two more
Yes.
questions.
Yes.
What are you up to now? What's going on with you?
Well, you know, I mean, I work a full-time job, so
Yep.
I'm busy working. And then my dad, ever since well, not ever since he retired, but since about 2019, whenever he has appearances, I travel with him. He fully retired, and he really doesn't, because he doesn't have to keep a calendar anymore. You know, he turned 80 on his last birthday. It's easier for him. You know, I pretty much know everybody, and everybody knows me in the
Yeah.
business. So I make all arrangements for him for bookings, for travel, things like that. So um, he has an appearance coming up, not this Sunday, but next Sunday in Baltimore for Celeb Fest #6, I believe it is.
Oh, wow, okay.
So that's coming up, but I do that, you know, whenever he has an appearance, I go along with him. It makes me feel better and it makes him feel better. So it's
Yeah.
a win-win that way.
Okay.
And then other than that, I mean, I have my CAC countdown calendar going at all times. And no, just, you know,
Yeah.
coming up with, you know, again, like coming up with ideas, barraging Brian and Rich with, can we do this? What about that? And just, you know, causing trouble with Darla and Barbara, plotting our next adventures. I
There
don't
you
know,
go.
just, you know, the usual.
Yeah. If somebody wants to book your dad, how do they go about doing that?
They can email bookjjdillon at gmail.com.
Okay. I'll put that in the description as well.
Sounds
So,
great.
all right. Hey, one more time, Pamela Morrison, thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I
Looking
appreciate
forward
it.
to see.
I'm so glad that we got to do. And this is the first time. This is like, I hope I wasn't too, because I can't see myself.
Oh, no.
So I don't know.
You're
I'm
great.
like, oh God.
Oh, you're great.
Because yeah, this is my first podcast that I've done like with video. So
Okay.
I appreciate
you-
it. I appreciate the time. This was great. And I'm glad we got
Yeah.
I feel like I got to know you a little bit more. And
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
any of your listeners do end up going to Herb's show, I hope they come up and say hi to me and to my dad, because that would be great.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, we'll both be there, and it's going to be, I think it's going to be a much more, although it's going to be a big fan fest, I think it's going to be a much more like intimate kind of affair than one of the big blowout things where you know, again, like you said, you're getting charged hundreds of bucks. So please come up and say hi.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I've interacted with her dad before at Dallas, and nice man. Talked to me for a couple of minutes. Him and Tully.
He loves his fans. And if you have a memory of a match or something like that that means something to you, and you ask him if he remembers, I'll tell you what, I am not kidding when I say he is so grateful for the fans and the fans that remember him and his career, because he will say over and over again, if it was not for the fans, you know, he would have nothing that he has, because, you know, he wouldn't have had the career. He wouldn't have his memories if it didn't mean something to everybody else. And that means so much to him. When somebody comes up and says, like, my dad took me to this, or it's like, and the older he gets, I don't think he'd mind me saying this, like the older he gets, the more emotional it makes him, and the more it means to him, because it's like, that is what life's about, you know, the memories that you make and the things that you hold, you know, close to you, and you think like, these were the good times, you know, these are the things that you think back on, and you just, gosh, I wouldn't give that up for anything. So
Well, again, go out and see him if he's going to be in St. Louis. If he's in Baltimore here in a few weeks, like Pam said, he's going to be in St. Louis May 13th for the Bruiser Brody Memorial.
Yes,
He'll be in
please.
Iowa, and July 20th through the 23rd, I believe it is, up in Waterloo.
Yep.
Go out and support these organizations, folks. They are wonderful, and Pam is a sweet person. I mean, I'm not just saying that because she's on here. I've interacted with her last fall at CAC. You are a very nice person, and I appreciate you coming on here today.
Thank you so much. I'll have to thank Greg for whatever he paid you to say that. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, folks. If you're watching, thanks. If you're listening, thanks. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so, and we will talk to you soon.